The Chief Executive of the Australian Food and Grocery Council, Kate Carnell, says it's important for the whole industry to work together to improve participation in agribusiness and improve Australia's export presence.
Because the industry isn't seen as sexy, isn't seen as mining or IT, it means that young people don't think about it as an opportunity. But the food industry is everything from working in the farm sector through to boardrooms in New York, or Switzerland or London. This is an extraordinary industry where you can work in all sorts of parts of the industry: marketing, finance, on the farm, in science, in research, all around the world, but people don't think about it. We haven't sold it as an exciting growth industry that's come through the global financial crisis with growth. You know, not losing jobs, but still having jobs we can't fill. I think one of the dilemmas of the industry is there's an awful lot of players. So there's a lot of people on farms in the agricultural sector. There's a lot of small to medium manufacturers. There's the vocational training sector. There's a whole lot of bits of the industry. And unlike mining, we don't have just a few very big companies. So it's a bit diverse, and the industry itself really hasn't come together and I think urged government to come up with a food strategy for Australia, about brand Australia. Australia is the source of clean, green, safe food, not just for Australians, but for the world. We desperately need a minister to be responsible for food. Now, Tony Burke is responsible for agriculture and has some of food. Nicola Roxon has a bit of food from the health perspective. Kim Carr is the Minister for Industry but doesn't have food at all. Simon Crean is into trade but doesn't have food at all. So you see, you end up being spread right across multiple portfolios with no particular minister responsible for ensuring that the food industry not only feeds Australia but is a growth industry, a really exciting industry to work in, and is very much part of brand Australia. The need for food and fibre in Australia and globally is huge. We know that we need to double our food production by 2050 to manage the projections that are suggested. That's huge when you consider we have to do it in a carbon and water restrained environment. Now, Australia is very good at producing food. We have to become better at value adding to that food here in Australia before we export. Much better to export cereals than it is to export bulk wheat in terms of margins for Australians. And we have to think about that. And most importantly, of course, that will make margins better in Australia and allow farmers, manufacturers to grow. Here we have an industry, the agri-food industry, that is already growing. The projections are we'll grow another 12% in the next 12 months or 2 years. That's pretty exciting growth. And this is at a time when government is projecting increases in unemployment. We're seeing a lot of expats from overseas come back to Australia because jobs have dried up. Let's be promoting agri-food as the place for those young people who are a bit worried about jobs to think about a career, those expats to be back in Australia working for an industry that's growing and has enormous potential for the future.